everybody, welcome to Marketing Heroes episode 3. We have a very special guest today. We have Adam Karen, who is a veteran account manager at a creative agency. So we're going to be talking about what that means, what a creative agency is, and how creative agencies help different businesses and different brands to kind of expand and reach more people. So Adam, I like to always start these episodes by defining marketing because everybody seems to have a different terminology for it. So how would you define marketing?
Yeah, so I think marketing, it's a very, very broad term in the industry. And I think the best way that I would describe it is really just consumer engagement, right? I think a lot of people describe marketing more as the sales of product and services or communicating the sales or anything to promote the communication of sales. For me, though, I think marketing is really a two-way street. It's not only communicating and speaking outwardly to your customers, but listening to them as well. For me, I think marketing can be anything from going on social media, seeing what your consumers are saying, and having that integrate and affect how you innovate for your products, to actually creating an ad that speaks out to consumers. So really, for me, it's just about any kind of consumer engagement that you're doing.
Right, so there has to be that consumer engagement back and forth.
Right.
So Adam, talk to us a little bit, in case some of our viewers, they don't know what a creative agency is. Can you just describe a little bit what it is, the type of work that you do?
Yeah, so a creative agency is a type of marketing agency that really uses creativity and ideas to solve business challenges. So companies will come to us and bring us, we want to get in market with communication for the holidays and increase our sales by X. And our job really is to think of what type of message can we put in the marketplace that's going to stand out, and what type of ideas can we use to really bring eyes to that particular business challenge.
What would you say are the benefits of a company hiring a dedicated creative agency versus just maybe doing their own thing, or maybe hiring an internal marketing expert or something like that?
Sure. I mean, I think there are a ton of different reasons why they would go to an outside creative agency. I think one of the biggest and most practical reasons is just cost. There are a lot of elements and a lot of people that are involved in a creative agency. We have an entire production team. We have writers. We have designers. We have art directors. We have creative directors to oversee the production of ideas. We have account managers and social listeners who keep their pulse on what's happening out in the world. So to have a team that big dedicated to just one corporate company's marketing department, it's very expensive, and I don't even think they'd be able to kind of staff those people with enough to do. Now, I think beyond that, I think it's really important for organizations to get outside input and outside ideas. I think, coming from inside your organization, you are kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, you are trained what to think, you have been inside your mission statement, and your main goal is really to, bring that company to success, but also be successful with your own position, play the political challenges within your organization, while an outside creative agency is going to come in with a fresh perspective and kind of give you new ideas that they think can grow your business and get consumers' attention in a new way.
I imagine that a good benefit of having someone coming in is that maybe they won't be afraid to speak their mind without like some sort of like repercussions. A lot of the time when you're working and it's like tunnel vision, you're kind of like wanting to agree with the branding of the company, and it's what you're saying. It's like that bringing new ideas of someone who's just going to give you like how they see your company for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. My agency, The Community, has a mantra called Fight the Good Fight, and it's really about making sure that everything that we're doing and every conversation we're having is in service of the work and the creative. So how can we make sure that what we make for our clients is going to be the most impactful, and if we have to have hard conversations to do it, that's what we're there to do.
Amazing, I love that. And Adam, at what stage would you say that it's a good idea for a business or a person or a brand to come consult a creative agency?
I think it's when you've identified what that marketing challenge you're trying to solve is, and you've kind of truly identified that and thought of all of the workings leading up to that, right? So the way a creative agency is successful in that partnership works is when you truly bring a good, concise brief to us. What I mean by brief is you're outlining kind of the background of your company. You're talking through what that marketing and business problem is you're trying to solve. And then what you really need is someone to generate some ideas over how to solve that problem. So again, whether that's sales, whether that's brand awareness, whether that's just the image of your company, it's identifying what you need to do there and then bringing that challenge to an agency.
Thank you for defining kind of what a marketing agency does. You're an account manager. So explain a little bit as an account manager, what it is like a day-to-day.
Sure. I mean, every day is different. The interesting thing about an account manager is we do a little bit of everything, kind of jack of all trades, master of none. So really the core of my job is working with the client directly and then also making sure every department at my agency is connected. So really I'm trying to keep the team organized. I'm trying to have the client's strategic vision in mind, right? So for everything I see, every project I work on, every team I work with, I'm thinking about things from both the client's perspective, what is going to solve their business problem, and also when I talk to the client, thinking about the agency's perspective of how am I going to make sure I can get this client to buy off on the best work possible.
And I'm curious, how do you become an account manager?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely roles that are entry level in account management teams. Like account coordinator, for example, you come in and you really help my team do some of the administrative tasks, schedule meetings, take notes. But the nice thing about it is I think most creative agencies do invest in their junior talent. Mm-hmm. So even though your tasks might be more administrative, you're in a lot of the meetings with the client, you're in a lot of the internal conversations. So you're hearing exactly what goes on and what goes into the creative process and helping the team be more efficient.
What would you say makes an account manager integral to the operation?
I mean, again, it really is being the hub, right? It is being that face your client knows. It's gaining their trust. It's knowing their business inside and out. I think the best account managers really embed themselves in the client's business. I should know my client's brand just as well as they do, and I should also be a resource for my team. Any question they have about the business, about the project, about the clients, I have that. So I think really it's just knowing it inside and out and being a resource for both the agency and the client to go to.
Awesome, Adam. And how do you go about understanding a client's needs? So when they come to you, you have to do, what's your process like that you look at your client, at their branding for you to come up with a strategy for them?
Yeah, so I mean, that goes back to helping your client develop a clear brief, right? I mean, most, especially some of my larger clients, kind of know the process already and have already come in with an understanding of what they want and the business goals that they want to achieve. I think then our goal as account managers is to go back to them and kind of pressure test them a bit, right? Outline what those KPIs are, understand how feasible it is to achieve those, and whether a creative idea or creative agency is the one to truly help solve that. So I think it's really just asking the right questions, getting in there, having some candid discussions and probing and getting as deep in their business as you can to really understand and figure out what their needs are and if there's any others that they might not even identified yet.
Awesome. And can you describe a little bit the process of designing a marketing campaign? How is that like from the creative process? Like how does that evolve from meeting with the client to discussing what it is that they need? Like how does that work at a creative agency?
Yeah, it takes many different forms and it really depends on at what level the client is at when they come to you. We've had clients come to us with kind of blank slates before, and we've also had clients come to us with kind of a core of a strategic idea that then they want us to build on. But really what it is talking through the client. We're seeing the work that they've done in the past. That's kind of where we start, right? We go through what have they done in the past, what's worked, what hasn't, internally what do they actually just objectively like and what don't they like. So you start there, you go through the competitive set, right? You look to see kind of what are the competitors doing, where does the client fit in that? Are they a challenger brand? Are they a leader? And using that to inform it as well. And then from there you start to find like what is the white space in the field and in the kind of creative market. So within that vertical that they work in, whether it's automotive or finance or fashion, you kind of figure out where there's space to play. Because the more you go head to head, the more you're going to split off portions and segments of the market. So if you can find an area to position yourself with a creative campaign that's going to feel unique, that's the route to go. So you kind of identify that space, and then you really just let your creative team like go wild. Let them think on it. Let them create new ideas. Let them bounce things off of each other, and then come together once those ideas start to form and truly ideate on them and figure out how to build that into a campaign.
How do you determine how a campaign is successful? Like what are the KPIs that you look at to meet with your team and determine if it's yielding the correct results?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the client's goals. I mean, sometimes it is more of, for example, a direct response campaign could be to get X amount of email signups from a particular campaign. A lot of times the projects I work on are more at a brand awareness level, right? So if you ask a consumer about a set of cameras, are they going to name your brand as one of those? Which really is just getting your brand name in front of people in an interesting way that they'll remember. If you look at the insurance category, for example, insurance these days don't talk about their prices or specifics about the insurance. They're really just having kind of wild and kooky, crazy ads with maybe a benefit line underneath it to really just get you to remember them, because it's such a uninteresting purchase for consumers that they just go off the first thing they think of and start to get quotes from there. So it's really defining with your client what those goals are and then tailoring a campaign to meet those.
So like in the case of insurance companies, like with the crazy weird commercials, is that more like a brand awareness campaign kind of campaign?
Because there's certain things that you can't control as a creative agency, right? Often what you're tasked with is developing a campaign. Now, if you were to say, well, I want sales to improve as an insurance company, there are so many things in the process, like what happens when you call in and people drop off, like what are those price compares to the competitors, what does the bounce rate look because of how they've set up their user experience in their website. So those are things that can't really be controlled by an overall creative advertising campaign, but what you can control is what consumers remember. Do they know your brand? How do they feel about your brand after seeing that creative?
Adam, we've seen a lot of different tools come out in the marketing world, from AI tools to automation tools. So as somebody that has to stay on top of the strategies and all of that, like what are some of the ways that you stay on top of the new tools that are coming out?
Yeah, so I mean, I think in like marketing strategy sectors or agencies that kind of focus on media or more strategic areas, it's really, really important for them to be using all of the new flashy gadgets. For us, again, it's really about creativity. There are tools that we use to help identify who our consumer is. My agency developed a proprietary tool specifically to what we believe works. That we leverage. But I think it's really just listening to pop culture and listening to culture and figuring out what those tensions are out in the world that you can help solve, right? What are the things people are talking about? What are the new trends coming out and how you can capitalize on those? And that really just comes down to paying attention, being active on social media, and like understanding what's going on.
So as an account manager, you have to deal with a lot of communication with clients. A lot of the people that are interested in marketing in this podcast are service-based industries that have to do a lot of communication with their clients. So what are some of the tips that you have to ensure effective communication with clients and your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think transparency is the biggest key for me. I mean, obviously, being the person who is the in-between between an internal agency team and the client, there are strategic ways that you have to go up presenting the information that you have, but I think truly the right client agents partners aren't hiding anything from each other. So it's going in there, it's knowing how to communicate exactly what's going on and ask the right questions, but then serve up the information so the client knows that they're along for the ride with you, right? So if your team is struggling to come up with an idea for X, Y, or Z reason, it's okay to have that conversation with your client, right? It's better to be upfront and open with them than hide things, because then at that point you start to get their trust. And once you have their trust, a true partnership can be formed and you can kind of create better work together.
Based off of this communication, has there ever been any moment that you have had to pivot based on some of the clients' feedback and you had to like change your strategy mid-campaign?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I think marketing moves so fast, but it also takes a significant amount of time to create a campaign from the moment that you're briefed to coming up with an idea to the actual production of it. I mean, that can be a process anywhere from 2 months for a smaller one to 9 months to a year for something big. So as you can imagine, a lot of things inside of an organization can change during that time. And I think the important thing there is when things do start to change and get off the rails, it's better to slow down to speed up than to just try to keep running. There's nothing wrong with taking a pause and going back to the strategy portion and redeveloping a brief and almost starting over to make sure that those new strategic objectives are met. Because if you try and shoehorn a new objective into a campaign that was developed around something else, or change a strategy into creative that was developed to achieve a different strategy, you're going to be doing two things ineffectively. So it's really about stopping, pausing, taking a look back at everything. What's this new brief? And then maybe you had creative ideas that still answer to that, but it's using that brief as your guardrails and making sure that's accurate to what the current objectives are.
Yeah, and I imagine that these are expensive campaigns to execute. Absolutely. So you want to make sure that you have whatever you have, it's going to be what the client needs and what's going to work for your client.
Exactly.
So you guys are probably super careful in that middle stage. Mm-hmm. I imagine that within a creative agency, like you have clients that have different budgets for their campaigns. So how do you come up with those budgets? How big the campaigns are for each particular client?
Yeah, I mean, there's two routes to go about it. I think the most effective way is when your client is able to articulate the budget that they have set aside for this particular business goal. Then the agency can truly evaluate how to spend that money to achieve a creative idea and to achieve that marketing goal. So then it's like we're working within these parameters. We will then work with various producers and production companies to figure out exactly how that money can best be spent. What can we do? What can't we do? How can we make those productions the most efficient to develop these assets? But on the flip side, a lot of times clients don't necessarily want to share that information because they don't want you to necessarily spend every dollar that they have. So in that case, it's really just sharing some ideas with the client at a sliding scale range. We can do something as big as this or as small as this. Here's your range. Where in there are you comfortable? And then optimizing the campaign and the creation of it based on that.
And have you noticed that this process varies between like the low budget clients to the high budget clients? Is there like a difference in how they present that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the higher budget clients are the ones that will keep their cards a little closer to their chest with their budget, because even though they may have a certain amount set aside for it, again, they don't want to spend it all. They want to be efficient with their money. Whereas a client coming to us with a lower budget will just be a little bit more upfront and say, listen, I've only got $100,000 to produce this whole campaign. How can we make this stretch as far as possible? Versus wasting our time to go through and figuring out what an ideal campaign would cost, coming back to them with a figure that might be 5 times what they have. So you notice that people are a little bit more honest and upfront when they have lower funds, because they already know that they're coming to you with a challenge and want you to have all the information possible to solve it efficiently.
Wow. So what would you say is the range at a creative agency of like how small can a campaign be as compared to like how expensive can it get?
I mean, it's the range is endless, right?
Okay.
I mean, I think depending on a small social campaign you can do for thousands of dollars or even hundreds, depending on like what type of ads you want to create. But like, I mean, massive large scale campaigns can be 5, 10, 15, $20 million easy just for the production of it, not including your media spend to actually put that out into the world.
That's incredible. So I imagine that with high budgets come high expectations.
Yeah.
So how do you manage, like, if there's ever at any point any dissatisfaction from the client?
I mean, for me, my job is to notice that dissatisfaction before it's expressed, right? It's to really read my clients at any moment, understand that moment that they're starting to get nervous, that they're starting to have hesitations. And for me there, it's really to diagnose that and figure out what's causing that, work with my team to optimize and improve it before it's actually an issue. Now, if that doesn't work right away, then sometimes it is an honest conversation with the client. It's how are you feeling? It's better to get feedback that isn't ideal in the moment and course correct than it is to kind of ignore it and wait until it explodes. So it really truly is identifying and understanding. And the more you get to know the client, the better you can anticipate that and know what is going to kind of frustrate them, where their expectations won't be met. And ideally, you're communicating at their team and course correcting before the client even feels that.
And Adam, how do you adapt to clients that maybe they don't have a deep understanding of marketing, or they might be working with a creative agency for the first time and they're not too sure about these terms and they're very new? How do you approach those types of clients?
Yeah, I mean, those clients can be great. I mean, there are challenges that come with them because they're doing a lot of things for the first time. They may not understand how much goes into something, how much time it takes, how much money it takes. But at the same time, they're truly the ones that will put all of their trust and faith in you. So it's really bringing them along for the ride. I think giving them a bigger peek behind the curtain. This is what we're doing at this stage and why. Here's our strategic team. Let's get all in a room together to partner together so we can develop and come to a solution as a team. So it's really just getting them more involved with this so they can see why things are happening when and kind of teaching them along the way. So then they're not just paying for the eventual asset that you're producing, but they're also being educated a bit on the process. So they can help make those decisions themselves better in the future.
And Adam, do you have any particular successful campaign that you can share, like more or less what happened?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into too many specifics,
Yeah.
we've had a few great ones. We recently did one for a telecom company for the Olympics. We were able to see our ad on the opening ceremonies, which was great. That one, I think a big KPI for the client was just kind of being out there in the world and having their stakeholders see it and having them be known as a leader in the marketplace. So I think they found that to be very successful. It also helped them get investment from the stakeholders for next year's Olympics. So that was interesting, so it's a little bit different of a goal, right? And they were able to achieve that goal and continue to market in those high-profile spaces.
Wow, congratulations, and I'm sure he was extremely happy with those results. That's great to see. So Adam, I imagine that as a manager, like there's a lot of tasks in your schedule. What are some of the tools or strategies that you use to manage your time and all of your clients properly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, as you gain more experience, you understand what those more urgent tasks are and prioritizing them forward. It's also understanding how to delegate, right? I think, especially in the account manager role, because we do a little bit of everything, and oftentimes we are trying to help pick up slack from other departments, it is easy to get overwhelmed. And I think a lot of us in this role tend to be a little bit of yes men because we're dealing with clients on a daily basis. We are personable people, so we want everyone around us to be happy. So it's understanding when you're not able to take those extra things on, and also understanding how to have your team that you work with help you out, right? Who can I delegate to? Who can I trust with this task? Who on my team can handle this? Versus really putting all that into yourself and then maybe missing deadlines or getting behind on your work and not paying enough attention to the things that are important.
I need to to work on my time management. And Adam, as somebody that deals with clients a lot, what are some of your strategies to keep a strong long-term relationship with clients and have them hopefully return to your company for more business?
Yeah, I think a big thing, like I said earlier, is trust. I mean, it's really developing that trust with the client, having that transparency. And I think a big thing too is just making sure that they like you, right? I mean, it is a business of people. So ensuring that you're communicating effectively with them, that you're even doing some of the basic things like checking in on them, how was your day, knowing them as a person is important to me still. I think a lot of business has gotten away from that in the recent years, and people are so focused on the business and their time and being efficient, but it's still important to develop those relationships and have someone want to talk to you on a daily basis, so that way when you do pick up the phone to call them to have a conversation about business next year or just to check in on how they feel the campaign is going, they want to answer that call.
There's so many new developments in the world of marketing, in the software field. So how do you see the future of creative agencies with all of this AI happening? How is that restructuring, if it's restructuring at all, the current landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think as it stands now, it's just helping us service our clients better, right? I mean, a lot of what we do is kind of selling the future of the work of what our idea is to clients, right? How can we show them that this is our idea and we want to bring it to life in this way? And that does take a lot of time and manual labor to draw out the idea, to comp something together in a system like Photoshop. Versus with a tool like AI, for example, now we can have a system develop something that's way more accurate and takes way less time to develop and gives a client a better idea of what the final product will be, which therefore helps us sell the ideas quicker and spend more time on actually making the thing versus selling the client on what it might be. So I think that, if anything, has really helped us. And I think there have been changes in the marketing and advertising field for the last 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, they said radio would change everything, TV would change everything, online would change everything. But still, at the end of the day, a good idea is a good idea. And I think as long as we center our business and agency models on that, we'll continue to be successful in the industry.
Absolutely. All right, and Adam, I just wanted for you to walk me a little bit into the process. So let's say I'm a client and I come to a creative agency. And let's say I present the budget. Let's say I have $1 million and I want brand awareness for my brand. Can you walk us a little bit of the process, how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would first come to us with that business problem developed into what we call a brief, right? That outlines the business problem. It outlines considerations, what have you done before, talks about kind of if there's any underlying business information we should have, like you're promoting this product. You've found through research that this resonates with consumers because of X. So it's really that transfer information.
So you want some background information?
As much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. Most companies have a large amount of strategic information and research they've done, and even develop some own opinions on why this product exists and why it works for consumers. So that's the best place to start. From there, we'll go with our strategic team. They will sit with that and they will develop what is called a creative brief in partnership with our creative directors.
And is this strategic team made up of whom? Is it creative or is it more like executive?
It's a strategy team specifically in the agency. So they will go out and think through, okay, here's the challenge. Oftentimes we'll do research with consumers, both kind of focus group qualitative work, sometimes it's quantitative, which you're going out and doing surveys and aggregating that data and trying to figure out kind of what are some good insights you can pull from that, right? So like, what are consumers wanting? What are consumers feeling? Is there a tension out in this world that this product can solve? So you start with that, and then you develop a brief for creatives that outline those things and even gives them some springboard for ideas. So then you go from there. You usually would align on that with the client. Do these tensions feel right? Do these insights feel right? Client approves it. You brief a creative team, and then the creatives are off to the races. Usually do a few rounds of creative presentations to sell in what that idea could be. Once the client approves that, you go into production and actually start making the thing.
Awesome. So once the creative get the brief from the strategy team, then they will present sort of like a mock-up presentation with concepts and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And then you go into production.
Yes.
This is cool because I'm learning. All right, Adam. So thank you for answering all those questions. I think we have an amazing idea of what a creative agency does and what a account manager does too. So thank you for that. So I have a segment each episode that is called Marketing Hero of the Week. And I just like to bring outstanding examples of marketing and marketing strategies, just to pinpoint interesting things that are happening in the landscape. So for this week, a lot of people are aware that 2 movies came out in theaters, and these 2 movies kind of like work together to create the perfect storm of promoting each other. Even though they're completely different, they're from different studios, they kind of just worked together in synchronicity, and then the internet did its magical meme magic. And both of these movies are like blowing up in the box office. So I'm talking, of course, about Barbie and Oppenheimer. So these movies could not be more different. They came to movie theaters on the same day. And right off the gate, they were both very successful. But up until the release date, people were like, oh my God, these 2 big movies from big directors, big studios, they're coming out on the same day. Like, what an interesting choice, because studios, typically they like to space out their movies. They like to have a weekend for themselves so that they don't have any competition. So it was very surprising to see like 2 major studios competing on the same date, on the same release date, for 2 very different movies. So the internet did its thing. They called it #Barbenheimer, and it became sort of like a challenge to watch both films on the same day. Now, I didn't complete Barbenheimer but on the same day, but I did do it like one day, and then the next day I saw the next one. So as of today, Barbie grossed $1.4 billion, which just blew expectations out of the water, you know. And then Oppenheimer, even more surprisingly, in my opinion, because it's a biopic, it's made almost $1 billion, $920 million, which for that kind of movie, it's very rare. The takeaway from this sort of marketing, which it wasn't even intentional. Right. I don't think the studios were doing this intentional. I don't think they knew what was going to happen. But I think something that you can learn is if you release your product around something that can complement it, if there's something interesting happening around, you can take advantage of it. So you don't always necessarily have to see what's going on around you as a competition, but it could actually help your product get more attention.
Absolutely.
You know, because of that juxtaposition. So whatever product you have, like maybe if there's a crazy event happening and you're able to create a meme out of it or create a hashtag out of it, then people that are interested in that other thing will notice your product.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something that happened in this example.
Yeah, I think being really in tune with what's happening in culture is really, really important. It's one of the things our agency was founded on, and I think we do very well. It's kind of finding those things in the world that you can tie yourself to. Because at the end of the day, like, consumers only really want to listen to brands so much, right? Like, we're not here to listen to Coca-Cola spew facts at us. Like, it's boring, it's uninteresting. But the moment a brand can find a space for itself and something that people are going to be talking about or are already talking about and insert themselves in an interesting and authentic way, it's gonna be massive, and it's gonna really amplify their message and make people want to listen to them.
And so, Adam, do you have an example for this week?
Yeah, so everyone's talking about it right now, but I'm fascinated by the whole Taylor Swift effect right now. So
I like where this is going.
Yeah, so obviously Taylor Swift has been in a budding relationship with Travis Kelce. It was a thing the internet's been following for weeks. Is it happening? There's been rumors. You know, the Swifties have been putting out all of their theories and thoughts behind it. And as it became more official, the NFL jumped on board right away. And I mean, I think there's conspiracy theorists arguing that they set it up. I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, we don't think they set it up.
But they've been taking advantage of it very well, I'll say. I would even to go as far as they did a full Sunday night promo that used Taylor Swift's song, which was ungodly expensive to license. But they took advantage of her song Welcome to New York during a Chiefs versus Jets game in New York. So relevant to the game, bringing in her
so they're
music,
aware of what's happening.
Aware of what's happening and putting everything into sport.
They're taking advantage of that wave.
Yeah, and even in the creative, they nod to it with the very ending shot as Travis Kelce looking up into the stands, which is just a hint that, like, we know Taylor might be there. We're, like, putting a thematic with this love story and going beyond what is just football and tying football more into Hollywood and popular culture. And the results were crazy. They had like a 22% increase in viewership week over week in Sunday Night Football. Wow. Their increase in female viewership was anywhere between like 25 and 50% depending on the demographic, which for advertisers in football is huge. Be able to reach a bigger audience, more diverse audience during those games, which is already a massive platform for brands to be able to reach people, and going that extra step further just because the NFL paid attention and maybe stepped outside a little bit of its comfort zone to say, okay, if we've reached our max of who are football fans and who we can get to watch this game, how can we bring other people in? And they use pop culture in Hollywood to do so.
And we didn't plan the examples that we were going to bring, but I see a pattern.
Yeah, I know, right?
Barbie, Oppenheimer,
Yes, partnerships.
Taylor
Yeah.
Swift,
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
It's like opposites. You
Yeah.
know, the internet does its thing, and they just like to have a lot of fun. Adam, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I've learned so much about what a creative agency does and what a creative account manager does. Any final thoughts that you have for, like, we have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners. So what would you say to those people that are trying just to expand their marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say trust creativity. It's what's important, right? I mean, there's always the simple and easy way to sell your product, you know, price, feature, etc. And I think a lot of times as a business owner of the product, you are very proud of what you're putting out there, so you focus on that. But not every consumer is going to touch your product or believe in what you're saying. So as much as you can trust to step outside of that a little bit and let creativity do the work in getting your eyes on your business and your product, I think is really important, and to trust some other minds that might have a different perspective for you.
Absolutely. And Adam, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
Adam Karen, yeah.
So again, thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in to our third episode of Marketing Heroes. And we'll see you next time.